From Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown, this is Sports Bash presented by TicketBash.com. TicketBash.com, where memories are made affordable and where you'll never pay a service fee. Sports Bash is also presented by Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service, keeping Long Island warm for over 18 years, serving their customers in Nassau and Suffolk with pride, honesty, and integrity. For more information, visit www.liboilers.com. Sports Bash is brought to you by the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Every customer is considered family at the Embassy Diner. Mention Sports Bash, get a free dessert with your meal. And by the Marty Lyons Foundation, the official charity of Sports Bash Media. For more information, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. Well, hi again, everyone. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Here on Long Island, I'm Peter Schwartz here at Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown. 516-465-3990 is the number to call. Make sure you're following along with us, subscribing to Governor's Comedy Club podcast on YouTube, and follow Sports Bash Media on X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also catch Govs Comedy Club podcast on Facebook as well. As you can tell by my attire today, we're going to be talking about the Knicks. And why not? After that big Game 4 win last night, they go up 3-1 on the Celtics. So we're going to be talking to Tim Murray, the host of Primetime on Vincent. He'll talk NBA with us, especially about the Knicks and what else is going on in the NBA playoffs. So we'll talk about that. I'll have my own thoughts on it as well. And we'll do that a little bit later on in the show. Of course, as you know, Sports Bash, one of the presenting sponsors, is TicketBash.com. And later in the show, also on the subject of Knicks and Celtics, Vinny Tickets, the CEO of TicketBash.com, he's going to join us because, Knick fans, you may have a chance to see your team wrap up this series at a very affordable price. And we'll tell you what the options are when Vinny Tickets joins us a little bit later on in the show, because it's actually amazing. And we'll talk about this with Vinny. Do you realize it will cost you less money to get on a plane, check into a hotel, and go to the Knicks-Celtics game in Boston tomorrow night with the Knicks up 3-1 than a ticket cost to get in the door last night for Game 4, and certainly if the series comes back to New York for a Game 6 Friday at the Garden? And it's interesting that happens, and again, it's crazy because look, Madison Square Garden is Madison Square Garden, and I remember a Ranger fan friend of mine years ago when the Rangers were in the Stanley Cup Final against the LA Kings. A friend of mine actually flew from New York, New Jersey, I think he flew from Newark, to LA, went to a game in Los Angeles, airfare, ticket, hotel, less expensive to fly to Los Angeles than to go to one of the games at Madison Square Garden. Is it the Garden? Is it just it's a New York thing? I would imagine, and I don't know this because I don't remember it coming up, I would imagine if you were a Yankee fan, it might have been less expensive for you to fly out to LA to go to a World Series game at Dodger Stadium than it might have been to go to one game at Yankee Stadium. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong along these lines. Is that possible? I guess it's possible. But I find it fascinating that Knick fans can go to Boston, fly there tomorrow, stay in a hotel, get a ticket to the game for less money than going to one of the games in the Garden. And you have the chance to see the Knicks perhaps potentially wrap up that series tomorrow night. On the subject of Boston, really quick, Tony Walker, my producer, and also the host of the Knock 'em Dead Comedy Club, he banned us from being in the building last Thursday because he had to go to Boston for a comedy show. So remember, last week we did shows on Tuesday and Wednesday. And by the way, I love the city of Boston. I love the city of Boston.
As a Yankee guy.
Well, first of all, I hate the Red Sox.
Right.
I hate the Celtics. Yeah, the Bruins, whatever. You know, we've usually handled the Bruins in the playoffs with the Islanders. I don't think the Islanders ever lost a series to the Bruins in the playoffs. They didn't, including most recently during one of the playoff runs. But as far as the city of Boston is concerned, I love the city. So when I found out that you were going to Boston for that comedy show, there was part of me that was a little jealous because there's nothing like a little quick trip to Boston getting some clam chowder. But you disappointed me extremely before the show when you said that you did not get any clam chowder while you were in Boston.
It's what I do, disappoint people.
Yeah.
just watch my show.
Sometimes I feel like I do that too. But you had a good trip, though.
Had a great trip. Thank you very much.
Good show.
Yes, very, very much.
I have a great Boston story.
I'd love to hear it.
This is unbelievable. So I'm covering the Jets years ago for ESPN Radio, and I was excited to go cover the game in Foxborough. It was a Monday night game. Now, truth be told, the game sucked. The Jets lost 45-3 on Monday Night Football. But that was the same year they wound up going to New England and beating the Patriots in the playoffs to get to the AFC Championship game. But I drive to Foxborough, and I check into my hotel. Now I drive to the stadium. And as you know, Gillette Stadium is right next to Patriot Place. Patriot Place, if you think American Dream next to MetLife Stadium is cool, you really should see Patriot Place next to Gillette Stadium because it's an outdoor shopping area with dining and shopping. It's an amazing thing that they did next to where the Patriots play. And one of the restaurants, I don't think it's still in business, or maybe it's a restaurant by a different name, but back then, and remember, back then, WFAN was owned by CBS Radio.
Right.
In Patriot Place was the CBS Sports restaurant.
Oh, okay.
They had a CBS Sports, sports bar right there in Patriot Place. So my plan was, and I'm trying to use my head once in a while. I'm going to drive to Foxborough. I'm going to check into my hotel. Then I'm going to get to the stadium early. Now, again, you cover games. They serve you food at the games, right? Sometimes you have to pay for it. Sometimes you don't. But my thinking was, I'm there on business. I'll probably be able to expense it through WFAN by going to. I'm patronizing my company's restaurant there in Patriot Place. So I go in there and I sit down, and I'm going to get like a burger and fries. But of course, what if you're in New England? What do you want to get? You want to get a nice big bowl of New England clam chowder. The waiter comes over to take my order. Give me a Diet Pepsi, please. Can I get a bowl of clam chowder? We don't have clam chowder.
Wow.
I'm like, excuse me? He goes, yeah, we don't have clam chowder here. I'm like, am I in New England? This Foxborough? How could you go to a sports bar in New England? 30 minutes from Boston, and you don't have clam chowder?
It's like going into New York City and not nobody
getting
having
a slice of pizza.
Yeah. Wow.
How do you not have a bowl of clam chowder? Now, the food was good. I'm still pissed off there was no clam chowder. I get into the stadium, though, and at halftime, God bless... Yeah, I don't see too many nice things about the Patriots. God bless the Patriots. At halftime, and I didn't know this, they served clam chowder in the press box at halftime.
Oh, wow.
So I wound up getting the clam chowder anyway, but I just still, to this day, and that's 2010. It was Monday night in 2010. Stupefied that I am in Boston, just outside of Boston, and could not get a bowl of clam chowder at a CBS Sports restaurant at Patriot Place.
And how many days would that have bothered you if you didn't get any clam chowder while
you were there? I would have been livid. I would have said, I am never... See, that may have been the death of me in Boston.
Yeah.
Because I may have just said, listen, if I go to Boston and can't get a bowl of clam chowder, then what's the purpose in going to... Because I covered, and again, it was a painful trip because 2004 was not a very good year for Yankee fans. But I covered the ALCS in Boston at Fenway, and I was there for 5 days because there was a rainout in between games 3 and 4, I think. So I'm in Boston for 5 days. I think I had clam chowder every day that I was in Boston. McCormick and Schmick's there, and Cask and Flagon right next to Fenway Park. If there was a place to go to eat, McCormick and Schmick's, I did not go. That was where my wife and I went when we went to Boston. I was supposed to propose to her on that trip, and the jeweler kind of messed up. I didn't get the apparatus in time. But anyway, that's a story for another day. That's another Boston story. But yeah, so you go to Boston and you're there for multiple days. You got to be able to expect you're going to get at least one bowl of clam chowder.
At least one, sure.
Yeah, so I was terribly upset by that. But anyway, I'm glad you had a good trip. You're
Thank
back
you, pal.
in one piece.
Yes.
Right? We think?
Well,
well, I mean that predates your trip
Yeah,
to
true,
Boston.
yes.
I'm not responsible for that. So, but good to have you back and good to see you again.
You too,
and we'll talk more Knicks and Celtics in a little bit with Tim Murray from Vincent, host of Vincent Prime Time. Later in the show, Vinny Tickets on the ticket situation. We'll also have the Ticket Bash weekly sports calendar and the Sports Bash media poll question of the day. And again, we're on a Knicks high today, because the Knicks are one game away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals and presumably against the Indiana Pacers, who are up 3-1 on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And again, we'll talk more about it later. But could you imagine the chances, the road that the Knicks had to get to where they are right now? If they were to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and let's just even be stupid for a second and say, if the Knicks should make it to the NBA Finals, the road would have had to have included, as we know, the Pistons, who gave the Knicks quite a fight in the first round, 6 games, right? Then you have to go through the defending NBA champion Celtics, who now you're up 3-1. And then you would presumably have to play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. And you look at the two teams that gave the Knicks the most trouble during the regular season, with the Celtics and the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers and the Celtics 1 and 2 seeds. The Knicks were 3rd. I don't think the Knicks had a win against the Celtics or the Cavaliers in the regular season. Maybe there was one win. I don't think they won a game against either of those two teams. But they're up 3-1 against the Celtics, and now the Cavaliers are down 3-1 to the Pacers. And again, the Knicks have a lot of work to do. It's not easy to beat a team, much less the defending NBA champions 4 times in a playoff round. But if the Knicks were to advance, and if the Pacers were to advance, wouldn't that be poetic for the Knicks after they were up 2-0 against the Pacers in the playoffs last year, and then the Knicks just got railroaded by injury after injury after injury, and they kept losing player after player after player, and finally wound up losing to the Pacers in 7 games. You don't think that would be on the Knicks' mind going into the Eastern Conference Finals if it gets to that point? Some food for thought as we head towards Game 5, Knicks in Boston. But ideally, and I know we went on a bunch of different tangents here to start the show, the topic I really wanted to start with, even though I'm wearing a Knicks jersey today, the topic I wanted to start with was watching the Yankee game last night. And if you don't know by now, and I'm sure most of you watching, either if you're a Yankee fan, you were watching, or you saw it on social media, you heard about it this morning, the gruesome injury suffered by Oswaldo Cabrera sliding home on a sacrifice fly that was hit by Aaron Judge. And I have to admit, I'm watching the game, and you saw Cabrera coming home, and I kind of took my eye off the television for a second. And then next thing you do, you look up and you see Oswaldo Cabrera on the ground, like kind of in like not a fetal position, but just crunched up on the ground. And the Yankees trainer is out, rubbing his back, and clearly he's in a lot of pain. Truth be told, I think I might have conked out. I didn't look away from the TV. I think I may have, because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. But I digress for a second. I'm just trying to be honest with everybody. I might have conked out a little bit, and that's why I didn't see what happened. Yes, Network would not show the replay, so I had to find it on social media after the fact. But if you watch it again, you can see the gruesome ankle injury that he suffers while running home and trying to slide. And look, I don't want to look at it over and over and over again, because that would be like trying to go look at Joe Theismann's injury over and over again, and you certainly don't want to do it. Remember that think it was a few years ago, there was that player in the NCAA tournament that suffered that gruesome leg injury. And nobody wants to watch that over and over again. I understand why Yes didn't show it again last night. But the reason I bring it up and I want to spend some time on it is that Oswaldo Cabrera is so well loved in that Yankee clubhouse. And I don't even think you have to be a Yankee fan to understand that. If you watch enough on television, you see games, he's always got a smile on his face, and he plays wherever the Yankees put him. Like, you know, they need someone to play third base, he plays third base. They need someone to play, you know, second base, he'll throw, you know, or left field, whatever it is. He's just a terrific teammate, a terrific person. So not that you ever want to see that happen to anybody, but to see it happen to a guy like Oswaldo Cabrera, who's just this happy-go-lucky player, part of, you know, a team that went to the World Series last year, and you could tell the concern as soon as this happened. You saw the look on each and every one of the Yankee faces, on manager Aaron Boone. You saw the press conferences after the game, the media availability, and you saw it in their eyes. This shook up the Yankees last night. And again, it would shake up the Yankees if it was anybody on the team, but specifically a guy like Oswaldo Cabrera, who means so much to everybody in that locker room, his versatility, his smile, just the way he goes about his business. And that's kind of like, I'm watching this last night, and that's what kind of hit me, is that why does something like that happen to a good guy like that? Now, we hope, you know, I think there's going to be an MRI today. I may have missed it before I came in. We will see if there's an update before we go off the air at 2 o'clock or 2:05. We'll see. But for it to happen to him, it's just that was the sad part last night. It really was, to see it happen to him and how well he's respected by everybody and so well loved. And you hope for the best. Prayers and thoughts to Oswaldo Cabrera. That hopefully and again, this is very, very wishful thinking based on seeing the replay the one time that I did, but it certainly looks like it's a long-term injury, and you wish him the best in his recovery. And I always find it laughable when people who don't get sports, these guys are overpaid and they have everything handed to them, and they live a king's life, these athletes and stuff. And yeah, to a certain extent, a lot of that is true. Players travel on charters, they dine in 5-star restaurants, they stay in 5-star hotels, they're paid millions and millions of dollars. I get all of that. We all would love to be in a situation like that, but that's not reality of life. However, when you are an athlete, there are risks that come with the job. And you could you could break your arm slipping on a step in your house. So when an athlete gets hurt on the job, it's amazing to me how many people just like poo-poo what these guys do for a living. They're still human beings. They're still real people. And look at what's ahead of Oswaldo Cabrera right now. Yeah, he'll still cash his paycheck every 2 weeks. He's hurt. He'll cash that check. But he's now got to go through this grueling rehab. And I can't imagine how much pain he was in last night. That was so hard to watch. So if you're a non-sports person, why are you watching the show? But for the people who just like poo-poo athletes, that they just get things handed to them and treated like kings there, they just look at what happened to Oswaldo Cabrera last night, and let me know if you'd like to switch places with him for the year now probably of rehab that he's going to have in front of him last night, and ask if he would want to go back and do it all over again. Because that was just so sad and so unfortunate. And again, not just as a Yankee fan myself, but just as a person, all the best to Oswaldo Cabrera. Hope he makes a speedy recovery and he comes back and, gets back to the type of player that he was before the injury last night. So we hope that all works out. Coming up on the show, Tim Murray, host of Vincent Primetime, is going to join us to talk about the NBA playoffs. Vinny Tickets from ticketbash.com will talk to us later in the show. All of that and more coming up when we come back here with more Sports Bash right after this. Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com. I'm Peter Schwartz. 516-465-3990 is the number to call here on the program. And, of course, number one story right now in New York sports, the New York Knickerbockers. 3-1. They are up on the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And on Zoom with us right now to talk about it is the host of Vincent Primetime. He is Tim Murray. Tim, it's Peter. How are you?
I'm great, Peter. Probably not as good as you guys, man. Whew. What a time for those Knicks, man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, it's interesting, Tim. You're here in New York. You know, every sport we have multiple teams, and there's always this question as to what the percentage is of fans of each team. So you start with baseball, and you could probably make the educated guess. You could split New York down the middle on the Yankees and the Mets, and maybe the Yankees have a little bit more based on history. Same with the Giants and the Jets. There's probably more, somewhat more Giant fans than there are Jet fans. Hockey, it's mainly Rangers, but you got the Islanders and the Devils. I think the biggest discrepancy in New York is if you tally up all the NBA fans, there's probably 90% Knicks fans and 10% Net fans. So when the Knicks are doing as well as they are right now, it really has the area in a fever pitch because just about everybody around here that loves basketball are Knicks fans.
Look, I mean, you guys have got the best arena in all of sports. As a college basketball fan, there's nothing better than the Big East tournament, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Being from D.C. and remembering, the vintage Georgetown teams going up there for the clashes with UConn or Syracuse or St. John's or whatever it may have been in, early March. It didn't get much better than that. And then, being a sports fan in the late 90s and seeing, those epic battles between Jordan and the Knicks. And obviously you guys, unfortunately, were on the wrong side of a lot of those. But, watching the atmosphere these past couple of years and then, look, to go up to Boston, as you guys well know, to come back the way that they did in both games 1 and 2, and then to fight back last night, down 14 again, and to play just exceptionally well from an offensive standpoint. Like, I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to take anything away from games 1 and 2. I kind of felt like the Celtics melted a little bit in games 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the Tatum injury, there was a lot into that, but at that point, it was already kind of done. The Knicks said, we're going to win that game.
Yeah.
And I just thought, Peter, when you look at the offensive execution and the way that they stepped up, it's going to get overshadowed a little bit because of the Tatum injury late in that game. But, Tatum really was the only reason the Celtics were in that game. I mean, that game had the chance of going down as one of the more, better clashes between two stars in the league, the way Brunson was playing and the way Tatum was playing. And ultimately, even before the injury, it was going to be the Knicks who were going to pull off another comeback. So, look, the atmosphere, I saw all the pictures. It was incredible. Look, I've got family, to your point. I got family all over Long Island. They're all Mets fans. They're Islander fans, but I've never heard them utter the word net in my life. So yeah, it is certainly all Knicks in that city, and it's pretty cool to see how it's all playing out right now.
Yeah, it's remarkable, Tim. To the point of the excitement around here. Show me maybe in Toronto outside of a Maple Leafs game where they have all those people standing outside. I think in Edmonton too, they do it a lot. Some cities do it where they set up the watch parties outside. But last night the Knicks are playing on their home court inside the Garden in front of 19,000 people, and you see that mob of people watching it. They did a lot of upgrading around outside Madison Square Garden. The street right next to it, they kind of built up a little plaza there, and that place was jammed up with fans last night. And then you have the 19,000 people coming out of the Garden last night, and they basically shut down 7th Avenue. If you saw that mass of humanity outside in front of the Garden last night, if you made the stupid mistake of driving around New York City last night and you thought you were going to drive down 7th Avenue past the Garden, you're crazy.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, look, and that's the cool thing about sports, right? And I just heard you talk in your previous segment about injuries and, Jason Tatum getting hurt and likely, when we find out the news, it's probably a very significant injury, probably done maybe all of next year. That's the unfortunate side. But when you see things like what we saw last night outside of Madison Square Garden, the jubilation, that's what sports is all about, man. And that's why, I love what I do. I'm sure you love what you do. We get to talk about sports. It's supposed to be the escape, and last night, look, I'll be honest, I'm coming on your show. I'm giving you the positivity. Look, on my show last night on VSiN Primetime, when the Celtics went up by 10 in the first half, Peter, I placed a bet on the Celtics to win the Eastern Conference at around minus 150. And felt like I was a smart guy. 14-point lead in the third quarter. That starts to dwindle. Jason Tatum gets hurt, and now the Celtics are around plus 850 to win the Eastern Conference. So, yeah, it was not, but that's what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. You try to get ahead of the market as a bettor, and sometimes it works out great in your favor. On Saturday morning, I was on the air when Derek Carr announced his retirement, and I jumped in on Tyler Shuck to win Offensive Rookie of the Year at 22-1, it goes down to 10-1. Sometimes you get fortunate, and then sometimes things like last night happen. So, that's the life of a bettor. But look, first and foremost, I'm a sports fan, and to see the Garden like it was last night, to see the jubilation in the biggest city in our country like it was, it was pretty cool to see, and that's kind of the unique aspect of being a sports fan.
Let's look at this from the Celtics' perspective. They're down 3-1. You mentioned the Jason Tatum injury, and it looked just absolutely awful, and he had to get taken out in a wheelchair last night. And I don't know if there's been another update on his MRI today, but it certainly looks like the Celtics are going to be without him at the very, very least for Game 5, probably for the rest of this round, I would think. Talk to me about the makeup of the Celtics now, their mindset, down 3-1 without Jason Tatum, coming back home for Game 5.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not a team that is going to be I'll just say they won't be. Let's just start here. If Jason Tatum's out all of next year, we're not talking about the Celtics being the worst team in the Eastern Conference. They've got plenty of talent on the roster. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, who has not obviously been playing all that well. Drew Holiday, who could not hit the broadside of the barn last night. But still, you've got guys who are seasoned, are champions, are gold medalists. But look, when you're without one of the top 5 players in the NBA, and a guy that really was dragging that team all of last night, him and Derek White, Jaylen Brown is really going to have to step up. And look, this is a guy that's capable of it. Eastern Conference Finals MVP a year ago, NBA Finals MVP a year ago, a max player. So he's going to need to step up, and he's going to need to, rise to the occasion here. What's interesting to note, just from a Game 5 standpoint, and there's an old saying, the Ewing theory, which you guys might be familiar with, with when Patrick Ewing, I believe, got hurt and how the Knicks responded, or, when you think about how this team will respond on in Game 5, the Celtics, that is, the betting market believes they're gonna win. They opened as a 3-point favorite last night, and right now they're around a 4.5 point favorite. So that tells you that this Celtics team is still pretty darn good, even without Jason Tatum. Now, that being said, Game 6, when it comes back to the Garden, or if it comes back to the Garden, the Knicks will be the favorite. in that game. So, this is a team that thrives on the three-pointer, and to be honest, dies on the three-pointer, right? You saw what they were capable of for 6 quarters of basketball when they shot 50% from three. They blew out the Knicks in game 3, and they were up double digits at halftime last night. But when they struggle from three, as we saw in games 1 and 2 in the second half last night, they can really, be all out of sorts. So, look, this team is capable. I don't think they're capable of winning a championship right now. Jason Tatum being out, I just don't see this team being strong enough and consistent enough moving forward. Could they win Game 5 in Boston? Yes. Could they win Game 6 back at the Garden? Sure. But I think what's going to be really challenging is for this team to string it together for 3 straight games with their backs against the wall against a team that you guys well know is elite at closing games. And you've got a closer better than really anyone in the league in Jalen Brunson. So I think, look, I'm not going to say for Knicks fans to feel comfortable because you guys have have had your lumps, so to speak, over the last, quarter century. But, look, the betting market is what it is right now.
Yeah.
The Knicks are now the betting favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference for a reason, being up 3-1 here in this series.
When you look at the Knicks, Tim, we're talking to Tim Murray, host of VSiN Primetime here on Sports Bash. Knicks up 3-1 going into Game 5 in Boston. When you look at the Knicks and you talk about, Jalen Brunson, who is, arguably one of the best acquisitions, maybe the best acquisition in Knicks history, and I don't think people even thought that was possible when they signed him. But you look at this Knicks team collectively, a little bit different look than last year. They bring in Karl Anthony Towns, and obviously you've got OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, who they gave up a whole bunch of draft picks to the Brooklyn Nets to get. I look at the Knicks this way, Tim. They are a fun team to watch. They are exciting. But in your opinion, how good are they? How much have they impressed you in this playoff run so far? And is this a team capable of winning the whole thing?
So I'll start with how good or how much have they impressed me. I think games 1 and 2. I'll go to game 1. I think the way Jalen Brunson, hit those big shots at the end of game 1, I was impressed. I was more surprised that the Celtics, the defending champs, melted down the way that they did. Similarly in game 2, I think to me, Peter, what I was most shocked about last night was how impressed I was on this New York Knicks team. And I don't want to come off as like this Knicks hater. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. I was just a Celtics believer. I believe that the talent of this Boston Celtics team was just too much for anyone in the East to overcome. And I think now I have to be in the mindset of, all right, this team is the real deal. Look, I am maybe too honest when it comes to how I bet things, right? I unlike social media, I don't hit at 100% rate. So I bet the Celtics to win this series in less than 5 games. And then after they lost game 1, I bet them again. And then after they lost game 2, I bet them again. And as I mentioned, during the game last night, I bet them again. It's not me being a Knicks hater. It's more of looking at the landscape of the East and thinking that the Celtics were so much better than everyone else. But after game 4, and this is even removing the Jason Tatum injury, that's where I came away saying, okay, I underestimated this Knicks team because, look, Mikal Bridges, there's a reason they shipped off 5 first-round picks for him. He's elite defensively. This is a Knicks team, and look, as better than I and all of your listeners know, this is a franchise that has not made the smartest moves when it comes to trades, free agency.
That's an understatement. Yeah. Until the last few years when they seem to have their bearings and what they're doing.
But you look, Jalen Brunson going out and getting him, and it's funny because the Dallas Mavericks win the lottery last night, which is a whole discussion for another day. You can make an argument now. What was the worst decision? Letting Luka go for as little as they did, or letting Jalen Brunson walk in free agency, right? So, that franchise somehow get thrown a life preserver after 2 boneheaded decisions. But, look, Jalen Brunson has exceeded, I would imagine, anyone's wildest expectations. And now, who knows how far this team goes. But to answer your last question of how good this team can be, Yeah, I think they can win the championship. Now, it's going to be a challenge. Oklahoma City, I think, ultimately comes out of the Western Conference right now the way that is broken. They still got their challenges ahead of them with the Denver Nuggets. I think the depth of OKC is what's going to carry them out of that series against Denver. I think you really saw the fatigue of the Denver Nuggets in Game 4 on Easter Sunday. Nikola Jokic just looked exhausted in that game. And OKC, I think the two things that jumps out to me about OKC, outside of the fact that they won 68 games in the regular season, is that you look at they do have a champion in Alex Caruso. You look at, I think that acquisition this offseason, while maybe it didn't pay massive dividends in the regular season, you saw why they went out and got a guy like Alex Caruso, a tenacious defender, via a trade from the Chicago Bulls this offseason. So, look, the Knicks will be a series underdog if they get past the Indiana Pacers, which, by the way, will be no walk in the park, as the Knicks obviously lost to the Pacers just a year ago. And look, Tyrese Halliburton, he and Jalen Brunson, you could argue, are the two clutchest players right now in this postseason. The plays that both of them have made have been just absolutely mind-boggling and so impressive. So it's going to be a war, I think, against the Indiana Pacers. I obviously do not believe the Cavaliers will overcome their 3-1 deficit. And then, OKC, if they are able to get there, defensively, that's an elite squad. But I'll tell you what, if we get Knicks and Thunder, those are going to be some grinders, man, because those are two really good defensive teams. And, that'll be a fascinating series if we ultimately get there. But, yeah, long-winded answer. Can this team win the title? Yeah, absolutely.
It was a long-winded. It's okay for a long-winded answer because it was a long-winded question.
Yeah, but I think, can they win the title? Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't think they'd beat the Celtics, and now they're up 3-1. And once again, people might say, yeah, but Jason Tatum got hurt. They were going to be up 3-1 if Jason Tatum was healthy, right? He got hurt so late in that game. They had already squandered the lead. So they're going to get the benefit of Tatum's injury in Game 5 and beyond. But they went up 3-1 with a healthy Tatum and a Tatum playing at elite levels last night. So is this Knicks team capable? Absolutely. Why? Because they're able to beat the Celtics. And if you could beat the Celtics, I truly believe you could beat anyone in the NBA.
Tim, I can't thank you enough for some time on short notice today. Thank you so much for joining me, and enjoy the rest of the NBA playoffs. And let's try to do this again very soon.
Sounds good. Enjoy it too, man. You guys are living the good life right now, so don't take it for granted.
Yeah, things are pretty good. Things are pretty good. Tim, thanks so much.
See you guys.
Thanks. VSiN primetime host Tim Murray joining us here on Sports Bash to talk about the Knicks. And listen, again, just to kind of circle back to my point before Tim joined us, and I think I mentioned this on the first segment, was just when you think about proportionally fans of and we're blessed here in the New York metropolitan area that we have multiple teams in every sport, and in hockey we have 3 teams. The disparity. What's the word I'm looking? The disparity. That's the word I'm looking for. College-educated person. Disparity in fans between the teams, I think, is very, very close until you get to the Knicks and the Nets. And it's very, very hard. You walk down the street in the city, and 9 out of 10 people are wearing Knicks stuff. So I think it's got to be the most lopsided disparity of percentage of sports fans that you will find in this area. So when the Knicks are on top of their game and they're having a season like this, go back to 99 and go back to 94, the last 2 times the Knicks were in the finals. This area went bonkers when the Knicks made those runs to the NBA Finals. So if they're able to finish this off, I'll tell you right now, if you're a New York City police officer and you're assigned to the area around Madison Square Garden tomorrow night, and the Knicks win, God bless you guys. Keeping an eye on that crowd, because as much as it was crazy there last night, I'm sure there'll be a Knick viewing party on the streets there tomorrow. I haven't heard yet if they're opening up the Garden. I actually looked on the Knicks, on the MSG website last night. There's no event in the Garden tonight, but in tomorrow night. So I don't know if they're gonna open it up. I went with my son to Game 1 last week, the Game 1 viewing party inside the Garden. What a great time we had. I think I talked about it on the show on Wednesday, but we had a blast. They made you feel like you were at the game. I could only imagine if they opened up the Garden. Now, for that Game 1 party, they only opened up the lower bowl. So there were probably like 8,000 or 9,000 people there. If they open up the Garden tomorrow night for Game 5, I bet you they could sell out the whole place. Mm-hmm. At $10 a pop to go to charity, 19,000 people, a chance to watch the Knicks beat the Celtics and go on to the next round. I think they could fill up the Garden. I would be very kind. Tony, you would agree, right?
I do agree.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll talk about Game 5 a little bit more, but we'll talk about it from the ticket perspective. Vinny Tickets from ticketbash.com will join us on the other side. And Knick fans, you may be very interested in the prices to go to Boston tomorrow night to go see the Knicks and the Celtics. We'll have the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. We'll have the weekly sports calendar. All that and more Michigas coming up when Sports Bash returns right after this.
In 1982, the Marty Lyons Foundation began with a single heartfelt mission: to bring moments of joy and hope to critically ill children by granting wishes that make their dreams come true. Since that day, we have touched the lives of over 8,500 families, raising over $43 million to grant wishes that offer a beacon of light in their darkest times. These precious wishes cost an average of $6,700 each, and your support is crucial to our mission. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. And with 76 cents of every dollar going directly to supporting our families, you can rest assured your support truly changes lives. The Marty Lyons Foundation operates 11 chapters in 14 states now, working tirelessly to reach as many children as we can. This dedication goes hand in hand with our commitment to transparency and accountability, earning us top ratings on Charity Navigator, Great Nonprofits, and Candid, which underscores our dedication to those we serve. The Marty Lyons Foundation grants wishes to children ages 3 to 17. And what really makes this foundation so special is our willingness to grant not only a first wish, but also consider a second wish to a child who continues to battle a life-threatening illness. We stand by these children, offering them hope and strength through the power of dreams, giving our children the courage to wish for more.
What's your purpose in life? Is your purpose in life to live in the big house and drive the nice car? No. Your purpose in this life is to make it a little bit better for those that follow and realize that we live for today to see a better tomorrow.
Visit MartyLyonsFoundation.org to learn more and get involved.
Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com and the Ryan Anthony Head Start Fund. I'm Peter Schwartz, 516-465-3990. We come back with a little Billy Joel, as usual in the last segment. We always come back with a Billy Joel song, and a little more special to play it today because this week was Billy Joel's 76th birthday. So a belated happy birthday to the Piano Man, who hopefully is recovering well and getting ready to resume his concert schedule. And of course, 3 big stadium shows here in the metropolitan area this summer at MetLife Stadium, Citi Field, and Yankee Stadium. And of course, you can get tickets for all of those shows on ticketbash.com. But what you can also get on ticketbash.com are Knicks playoff tickets, and specifically for Game 5 tomorrow night, with the Knicks having a chance to wrap up their series with the Celtics up 3-1. And on the line with us to talk about the market for Knicks playoff tickets is the CEO of ticketbash.com, Mr. Vinny Tickets. Vinny, how are you, sir, my friend?
Doing great, Peter. How are you?
Doing great. So a lot of excitement about the Knicks. The playoff ticket prices at the Garden have been, basically through the Garden roof throughout this playoff run, especially in this round against the Celtics. What's the demand been like from your perspective for these Knick home games in the playoffs?
Yeah, the demand has been very brisk and very expensive. There was actually a time when you could go to some of these games for under $500. And, I saw this happen. Remember in Linsanity?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when all the Linsanity was going on?
Yep.
Yeah. Is he still in the NBA?
No. I think he might be playing overseas. I don't know, but no, he hasn't been in the NBA for a while. But I remember that whole craze when he came up and started playing, people were going nuts over it.
Yeah. So Knicks are a very unique breed when it comes to tickets. And, you guys know I've been doing this for 26 years. And outside of some national events that I've been involved in, there's nothing that trades as aggressively as a Knick ticket. Nothing. And what I mean by that is just that you could literally have a Knick ticket, and if you go to the bottom of the board, the least expensive price, your tickets are selling within seconds.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, and
it's nuts.
Yeah, it's a tribute to the Knick fans. They're very hungry. They're very hungry to see a champion out there, and the fans are clamoring right now over these series and over the games. It's very exciting.
Now, I saw a graphic this morning on social media, and I thought it would be great to have you on to talk about this, because I remember this happening the last time the Rangers went to the Stanley Cup Final when they played the LA Kings. I had a friend of mine, and I was telling the story on the show earlier, but I had a friend of mine who actually went out to LA to see one of the Stanley Cup Final games in Los Angeles. His hotel, airfare, and the ticket to the game in Los Angeles was less expensive than just a single ticket for any of the games in the finals at Madison Square Garden. And I bring that up because this morning I saw a graphic, and I don't know what the data was based on, which secondary ticket service it was, but apparently it is cheaper, I shouldn't say cheaper, less expensive for a Knicks fan to fly to Boston tomorrow, get a hotel room, get a ticket for Game 5, that a singular ticket would be for last night's Game 4 or a potential Game 6 on Friday night.
Yeah, I'll validate that statement now. Let me just take a look, because let's see, Knicks tomorrow. I'm sure you've been watching the games, right, Peter?
Oh, of course, absolutely. I actually I went with my son Jared to see Game 1, the viewing party inside the Garden for Game 1.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get a flight to Boston for under, I'll tell you the numbers right now. The least expensive seat to go to the Knicks on Friday is $800.
Okay.
And that's to stand. But you could go see them play tomorrow night for $250.
Wow.
So you have a $550 travel expense per person.
Right, per
So if
person.
you go 4 people, that's $2,200 that you would save by going to Boston. But then you'd have to get there, which you could drive for almost no money.
Right.
And you get a hotel for a couple of $100 for the group, and you're either spending $3,200 to see them play at the Garden, or you're spending $1,000 plus your travel expense and your hotel. So yes, that was a good article, and it is valid.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you see these articles, someone spent $60,000 on a seat to go to a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They're not giving me that order.
No. Vinny Tickets from Ticketbash.com is joining us here to talk about the Knicks ticket demand here in the postseason. It's been a long time, Vinny, since the Knicks went to the Eastern Conference Final, not just the NBA Finals, but just the Eastern. I think it's 25 years since the Knicks have been in the Eastern Conference Final. If they finish this thing off, whether it's tonight or another game in this round, they get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, as delirious as Knicks fans are now, I can't imagine what that's going to be like in the next round and how busy you and your staff are going to be in the next round trying to facilitate ticket orders.
Yeah, we're excited. We're anxious. And the great thing about using our service and our site is, the concierge service, you get your own personal account rep. You're never paying a service fee. if there's any issues downloading your tickets or accepting your tickets. We have a customer service department that's bar none in the industry. So that's always a big advantage. You're paying a lower price and you're getting a better service.
And one last thing, I was watching the news with my wife this morning, and there's the story of the bus strike, the transit strike going on right now in New Jersey, and it affects these two big Shakira concerts at MetLife Stadium. Have you been keeping your finger on the pulse of this? Because I'm sure you had a lot of people that purchased tickets for those shows through Ticket Bash. And what's your advice to people who are going to that show that may not want to drive, or maybe looking for a way to get to New Jersey earlier to be there for those shows this week?
Yeah, take the car out of storage, Peter. I'm going to tell you.
I think we lost. Did we lose Vinny?
Borrow mom or dad's car. Borrow your kid's car.
Yeah. I think find a hotel along Patterson Plank Road or Route 17 and stay there for the night. All right, we seem to be having some.
But it is a very popular show, Shakira. Very popular show.
Absolutely, I'm sure the fans, by hook or by crook, will get there.
And we do have.
I think we're having some.
Yeah, and we actually have a bunch of seats left for Shakira.
Okay.
So, ticketbash.com if you want to get them no service fees.
Sounds good. Vinny, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon. Vinny Tickets, the CEO of ticketbash.com, joining us. Yeah, again, if you're a Knicks fan, well, you have a chance to get a really good deal. Go down to Boston and see the Knicks try to finish off the Celtics tomorrow night in Game 5. Let's go to the ticketbash.com sports calendar. It is the weekly sports calendar brought to you by ticketbash.com. Mets play the Pirates at Citi Field tonight, the 13th, tomorrow, the 14th. The Knicks and Celtics in a, if necessary, Game 6 at the Garden on Friday night, the 16th. You have the Yankees and the Mets meeting for the first time, the Bronx leg of the Subway Series this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 16th, 17th, and the 18th. And you can get tickets for all of these events and more at ticketbash.com. They offer no service fees and have the lowest prices around. Here's a little spoiler about the poll question for Thursday. I thought about doing it today, but I'm holding it off for Thursday. So here's a little spoiler tease. And I say that because we don't know what's going to happen in the Knicks game tomorrow night. But if the Celtics win Game 5 tomorrow night to force a Game 6 at the Garden on Friday, if you're a Yankee/Mets fan, which obviously, I mean, if you're a baseball fan in New York, I'm sure 95% of baseball fans in New York are either a Yankee fan or a Mets fan. You have the outlier occasionally. You know, this guy's a Red Sox fan. This guy likes the Cubs. This guy likes the Phillies, whatever. 95%, I'm sure at least, of baseball fans in New York are either a Yankee or a Met fan. Seems like a reasonable number to me. So you're a Yankee/Met fan, but you're also a Knicks fan. And again, as we've talked about, I think most NBA fans in New York are Knicks fans. So if there is a Knicks-Celtics Game 6 on Friday night, what are you watching? Are you watching the Subway Series, Mets and Yankees, which has been so highly anticipated since Juan Soto left the Yankees for the Mets? Or are you watching the Knicks game? Now, if you have tickets for one of those two, obviously you're going to that game. But if you're sitting at home on the couch and you're watching, you have a choice of watching Yankees-Mets or watching the Knicks and Celtics Game 6. Again, we'll have a clearer picture of this for Thursday's show. Listen, as much as I would love to watch that Yankee-Met game, like if there's a Knicks-Celtics Game 6, Tony, I think you got to watch the Knicks. I don't know how big of a basketball guy you are, but if I had to guess, I'd say you'd probably watch the Yankee-Met game.
You would be correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
I figured that.
Yep.
But you could understand the dilemma that a lot of fans would have if the Knicks don't finish their business tomorrow night.
I totally understand. I'm glad it's not a dilemma I have.
It's not Tony, take that basketball and get out of my face. You and my wife would have a great conversation about basketball, probably.
It would last, what, a minute?
Well, My wife has said to me on many of occasions when either one of my sons, Jared in this playoff run, watching the Knick playoff games, she'll I'm going to go watch my show in the other room because I wouldn't watch this if it was being played in the backyard. And I totally respect and understand that.
Sure.
Because different sports or even shows are not everybody's cup of tea. So,
correct.
Fine, whatever. I totally respect it. But could be, Nick, just take care of business tomorrow night so we don't have that problem. Because I, too, would like to watch the Yankee-Met game over the weekend, fight it out with my rest of my family on the Yankees and the Mets. I'd like to be able to, concern myself with that. So just take care of the Celtics tomorrow night. We don't have to worry about the potential conflict on Friday night. It's time for along the very same subject here, Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. Knick fans, what is your confidence level in the Knicks finishing off the Celtics in Game 5? And you have 4 choices. Very confident, somewhat confident, 50-50 shot, not confident. I know he's not a basketball guy, but what would be your level of confidence, Tony?
I'm kind of in between somewhat and very.
Somewhat and very.
You just kind of feel it like they're going to do it. You just kind of feel it.
The Celtics and their fans are deflated.
Yes.
I don't think there's a lot of excitement in Boston, especially after Jason Tatum got hurt last night. I would be somewhat confident. I would never be very confident because it's the playoffs. It's against the defending champions. I would be somewhat confident. So there, go to our Sports Bash Media X/Twitter page and cast your vote. A couple of little pieces of business to take care of. Don't forget Pat LaFontaine and his Companions in Courage Foundation present a concert for courage on Friday, May 30th, 8 o'clock at Adelphi University's Performing Arts Center in Garden City. The concert featuring jazz keyboardist Al DeGregoris and his all-star ensemble. Tickets are available for under $30. For more information, visit www.cic16.org. Coming up on Thursday, we will recap Knicks and Celtics Game 5. Let's go, Knicks. Avoid the conflict. We'll also look at the NFL schedule, which will be revealed on Wednesday. We had a little taste of it the last couple of days with some of the marquee games being announced by the league ahead of the entire schedule. We found out today, and I'm only bringing this up because if I bring it up on Thursday, there'll be an individual to my left shaking his head left and right, up and down, smiling, nodding, doing all these gyrations that really annoy me. So I'm bringing it up now so I don't have to look at it on Thursday. But I'm bringing this up today because they announced again that Jets are going to be playing a game in London against the Broncos. I don't even care what stadium it is in London. You know how I feel about that. The Jets are losing a home game to football fans in London. I can't stand these international games. I'm on record. I don't like it. I don't like season ticket holders losing chances to see their team play. Not everybody can afford that transatlantic flight across the pond to London. People, it's a great time, you're just being an old fart, get on a plane, go to London. No, I can drive 2 hours to go, 2 hours, sometimes 3, to go to MetLife Stadium and see my team play here. Why would I want to go across the pond? I can't stand these international games, and all they keep doing is adding more and more and more of them. I can't stand. I also saw today the Vikings apparently are playing back-to-back international games. So they're going somewhere, and then they're going somewhere else. I think they're going to London. I think they're going to Germany after that. So they're going to be overseas for 2 consecutive weeks. That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
That's stupid.
Yep.
Keep the games here. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if you want to keep giving London NFL games and baseball games and NBA games, whatever it is, in Europe, all of our real games, please do me the one favor and bring a real English Premier League soccer game and play it at MetLife. Play it at SoFi. Play something that belongs to another country over here and not Manchester United's going to play Liverpool at MetLife Stadium this summer. Yeah, you know who's playing in that game? I'm just making those up. They're not really playing here. I'm just making up. They're going to bring their B and C players. And maybe a star will, The fans will go crazy and watch the star warming up and play the last 10, 15 minutes of the game. I've been to those friendlies. It's a friendly. You don't get to see the star player. Bring me Man U and Liverpool or Man U and whoever to MetLife Stadium for a real game. They're getting our real NFL games, so why can't we get one of their real soccer games? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But I'm bringing that up because otherwise, if I brought it up on Thursday, you know who, going to be sitting here going, and the headphones will be falling off again. I don't want to do that. I'm sure he's watching and going to be very annoyed when he comes in here on Thursday. That'll do it for, by the way, we're going to play Stump the Wiz on Thursday too, and we'll have This Week in Sports History. Those are the good things that will happen on Thursday. So hopefully we're also talking about a Knicks Game 5 victory. That'll do it for this edition of Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com and Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service. Thanks to my guests on the show, Tim Murray and Vinny Tickets. Thanks to good man over here to my right, Tony Walker, everyone here at Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown. Sports Bash is sponsored by the Embassy Diner in Bethpage and the Marty Lyons Foundation. For our entire crew, I'm Peter Schwartz. Thanks for watching and listening. We are back with you 1 o'clock on Thursday. Have a great day, everyone.